All right. Well, yeah, but thank you for bringing out that we should start podcasting. Anyways,
Wow, this is
it's a pretty incredible fictional universe.
Yeah, pretty incredible fiction. This is different than anything else we've read. I mean, I guess Road to Dune was as close as we're going to get to any other book that we've read similar to this, but this was just very different altogether. You know, full book, just on Frank,
and not a short book. We're talking about a 500+ page book on basically analyzing Frank.
Yeah.
I guess so. Why don't we start just going around with like first impressions of this book here? Why don't you start, David?
Okay, first impression. I have read several biographies, autobiographies, and by several, I'm not saying a lot. Very small amount, and most of the times when I pick them up, they wind up being autobiographies, which I kind of find a little disappointing or whatever. But this is the first time I read what felt so personal and real, and I think that's why I connected to it, because it was written by Brian, and he was, writing about his father and life as he saw it, through his eyes with his dad. And I thought that was a really great connection to have, to see this father-son bond form and break and form kind of thing going on. And, even from his perspective of, in heaven having been a good thing overall. So I really enjoyed this book a lot more than I expected to. I expected it to be a labor of love on my part, and I wound up actually being genuinely sucked in to a degree. So,
well, very good. Jim, how about you? Jim?
Oh, okay. You kind of blanked there for a minute.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I'll tell you what. I wasn't sure what to expect, and a lot of times a biography gets kind of dull and boring once in a while. I opened up this book, and I could not stop reading. It was just incredible. I mean, what an interesting man, what an interesting life, and the ins and outs and everything. And Brian's writing was absolutely stellar.
Yeah. I mean, I have some nitpicks, but overall, yeah.
What? Nitpicks?
I know. That's what we're
Yeah, so it was a good book. It was a good biography. I'm with you. I don't typically gravitate toward biographies. Probably the closest I get is, I was talking to you about this a little bit earlier. I'm currently working on a book that is, if you want to argue anything, it's like the biography of this house. So it encompasses the lives of the people who live there. It is a very, I think the thing that I resonated with this is I could feel probably how difficult this was to write. I don't know. I didn't do any research. Any of you guys, did you do any, how long did it take them to write this or anything like that?
I did not,
yeah. When I tweeted and tagged him in the tweet how much I enjoyed the book, and he told me it took 5 years to write.
And
wow.
Yeah, and that's not surprising. It is again, it's a 500-page tome. That's not short by any means, but it is a difficult thing to know how to present a life, because there's I look at my own father, for example. There are so many ways that I view my own father. The good, the bad, the ugly, the stuff that the fond memories, the memories that I have no recollection of, but my brothers do, because they just kind of blanked them out, not because they were terrible, because they seemed unimportant, but were important to them. You made the comment earlier, and maybe I'll be stealing your thunder here a little bit, but there were times that you could sense that intimacy as he wrote this book. I mean, that closeness. And other times that you could tell he did a little bit of research. And sometimes the blending of them two don't always mesh real well. I'm not certain that I could do much better.
Right.
I am doing much better.
That's I mean, honestly, that's what I thought at the beginning of the book, especially. I didn't expect
Well, especially because it's the one that's most remote from his life.
Yeah, he goes back way further than I expected him to go back, and
like he goes back to when like Frank was just an egg and sperm. I mean, that's it.
Yeah,
Pretty amazing.
In detail.
In detail, you see this.
It's like, look who's talking.
Yeah. Look who's talking, Frank.
But I mean, like it would switch from like he would tell like a short story about an event, and you would kind of get into that short story, and then maybe the story didn't have like a concrete ending, and then all of a sudden he would just be listing facts again, and that's the part that kind of was like, wait, did we finish the story? I would go back a couple of paragraphs or something and be like, okay, so we're done with this point. We're no longer talking about the fishing trip. We're just, these things happened around this time. And it was okay. It was just, to me, it was a little jarring. However, like I said, I don't read a lot of these types of books, so I don't know if that's normal. Overall, it didn't affect my enjoyment of the book. I will say this is the first book I read on my Kindle. I bought a Kindle, and I read this book on it, and that too changed the whole experience of reading. That's another discussion, Kindle versus paper type thing. But
what do you mean? How did that change your reading for you?
well, so like I had a hard time grasping how far through the book I was, and a lot of times I judge how much more I'm going to read because I like to finish a chapter before I stop. So it was very difficult to figure out like how much more. And at the bottom it shows like what percentage of the book you're through, and it like measures your reading after a while and tells you how much longer it'll take you to finish the book. And every time I saw that, I hated it. But it's like, and it's the pages are much smaller, so you're flipping the pages and you're like, yeah, I'm making progress. And you're like, no, I'm really not. Like it's been 31% for like an hour, you know. So it's a different experience. I mean, something I'll have to get used to because
you will.
Yeah, I mean, I got it because I don't own a house, so I'm going to probably be moving again at some point, and I just don't have room for all the books, especially with if our plans go through for moving forward. I just need to be able to read and not have something on the shelf.
Right.
So
yeah,
I'll get used to it.
Yeah. So you did you read it on the Kindle as well, Jim?
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
I got the good old paperback. Trying to think of the last paper and ink book I read. Well, I guess it would be Dune. D-O-O-N, Dune would be the last paper and ink book I've read.
Well, I mean, I'll go back to...
Makes a good coaster.
I have our next two books. I have them in hardcover, so...
Oh, do you?
I go back. I thought I had Dreamer of Dune, and then I didn't, and I was like,
I can order. You're like, what?
Yeah, ordered it real quick. Just happened to be on sale. I was like, yes.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, it's not that expensive. It was like $7-8.
No, like the Kindle.
Well, the Kindle itself.
I didn't have the Kindle.
You were like, well, let's see. I need to give Frank Herbert's book. You know, I should really get a Kindle so I can actually read this book and like justify buying a Kindle. Right?
I was going to get one anyway. They were on sale. I needed it for this book. And I was like, I need it for the future. So I was like, looks like this is the excuse to jump in. So I have a Kindle. Like I actually really like the Kindle. I got like the paperweight one because I don't want the backlight.
Right.
So, but I've really enjoyed it. But it's definitely a different experience than holding the book in your hand.
So I guess let's get into the book itself and talk about some of our the moments that for us really shone and parts that we really enjoy. Jim, do you want to start us out in this one?
Okay. What I enjoyed out of this book, I think the most was the way that the feelings came across from Brian, his feelings about his relationship with his mother and father and their relationship with each other, and how he the pain of going through writing this book. I can understand why it took 5 years. I mean, he could probably only write so much and then was just mentally exhausted. That's what came through on the highest level for me was the emotional content.
Yeah. Well, for me, one of the things that I was fascinated with is the chapter, especially on Soul Catcher. Okay. The chapter on Soul Catch. I mean, I think it interests me because it's the next movie I think that we're going to get as a Frank Herbert movie because it's been optioned or currently working on a screenplay for it. Doesn't mean that we're actually going to get the movie. Just mean that they've sold the optioning rights for it.
And as we've seen, it doesn't always mean it's going to be good.
Correct. Although I don't know, it has a potential.
Yeah.
So, but just reading that chapter on Soul Capture, and it was kind of the first big breakout book for it.
Yeah.
Because it came before Dune, right?
No.
Soul, or was that after Dune?
Soul Catcher was after Dune. The big one before it was the submarine one.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
and that was optioned as a movie as well.
Did it ever get produced?
I can't remember.
I forget.
Yeah.
So how about you? What do you get? What tell me about like?
For me, I love the father-son dynamic, and it's not normally something that I would connect with because I primarily grew up without a father, and so it's not normally, like I said, something I would even be able to relate to. But at the same time, when he was younger, like I did have the younger years with my dad before he got sick, and so I could definitely relate to the views that he was describing how he saw his father as a kid, and like how they're driving in the car, and he's like, my dad was. He's like, looking back now, I can see how perilous these situations were. But back then, my dad was my dad, and nothing could stop him. And like, I never gave it a second thought about his driving or this or that. Or I think the moment that sticks out to me the most, and just in general, parent-child relationship, is when him and Brian and Jan go over to Frank's house for dinner, and he describes how his father is telling them stories, and they're all sitting in the living room, and he looks out the window and he realizes all his life he watched this happening from either the loft in his bedroom or he listened from across the house. His father would share stories with people in the living room, and now he was in the living room having the story shared with him, and how weird it was to experience switch of his relationship with his dad.
Did you feel that he viewed that like as a coming of age moment for him? Like he somehow had arrived? As kids, you see those things and you're not really invited into those situations, but that moment that suddenly you're invited, it's like you've arrived.
I think a little bit of that. I think to me, I read it as almost a scary type thing. I mean, I guess I've gone through similar stuff, as I'm sure you guys have with my parents and my mom and stuff like that switch from where you realize that your parents slowly stop being just your parents and start being like on a more of a friend basis as well as your parent.
Well, when your parents finally accept you as an adult, is
exactly
what you're talking about,
right? Yeah.
Because the relationship, according to the book, between Frank and Brian was very strained. Well, Frank and all his kids was very strained while they were young, because Frank didn't have a great deal of patience for younger kids running around the house, making a lot of noise, things like that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I knew it was coming because I knew that from other conversations that they eventually got a good relationship. But the way that it happened in this book, you kind of see the building blocks building up, and then it just kind of clicked and happened. And it was after I expected it to happen a little before his marriage. And I also thought it was interesting to see Brian kind of, in a way, following his father's footsteps and getting eloping like really quickly, kind of a thing. So
yeah, and it's interesting because Brian eventually came under like a mentorship, of Frank, as far as a writer goes, at least to some degree. I don't know how long did that last. It wasn't very long.
Yeah, I was also, that was towards the end, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm not
So,
sure.
I thought, family. It's funny though to watch the way kids react to parents differently. You see that in Brian and Bruce.
Yeah.
And the way and how Bruce kind of reacted versus Brian.
Right.
So that was an interesting storyline just to see that relationship, his struggle. Well, Brian certainly had his binge drinking stuff that he went through.
Yeah.
And Bruce dealt with it in other ways. So.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I also, one of the things that hit me, I'm sorry, before I hand it over to you guys.
No, I was giving you Jim next.
The moment where he's talking about having gotten in trouble and his mother tells him she's done with him and that if she had to choose between him and Frank, she would choose Frank. And I'm like, man, that must have sat with him forever. I can only imagine. And then writing that confession on paper must have been so difficult to just drum up that memory of his mother, who he obviously adored, just, say that to him. So, anyway.
Yeah.
Thoughts,
Jim?
It's gotta be very difficult to air dirty laundry.
Yeah.
And to admit that, well, all of us who have read Frank Herbert look at him as, he's up here, and then to find out that he was just a human being like the rest of us. He didn't pay his bills regularly. He missed deadlines. He did things that he shouldn't have done. And then for a son to say, okay, I'm going to put this out for everybody to see, and then probably feeling like, am I betraying my dad by doing this?
Yeah. I guess the doing something like that would be very complicated because you have your siblings alive and you have your parents alive yet when you're still writing. In this case, the only person he really had to contend with was the public's view on Frank and his own shortcomings and how much he was willing to be transparent.
Yeah.
On that, because I think that's very difficult. I know. Yeah, I bring it back. For me, reading this was a lot of connections for me. I look at my own family when I write about them in the book that I'm writing. There was some stories about the way this farm was acquired. There was some conflict in this family, and all the major players have died, but there are still some people that would remember it. And so, do I put that in or do I not put it in? I don't know that Brian had so much of that problem.
Yeah. 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 It just. I also found it really interesting how long it took him, even after he was seen as a success, to really become a success.
In his own eyes, you mean?
Well, even, so he had won all these awards and Dune was doing really well, but then when you looked at how life really was, they were still struggling pretty heftily they weren't actually, it was, all the success was happening, but he wasn't actually making any money yet. It was right before, what is it, the second or third edition of Dune when it really exploded around the world. So.
Yeah, it was interesting to see how that grew and just the struggles. His wife was working full time to kind of make sure that he had food in the table. And
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. So what else do you want to talk about, guys, about this book?
Well, something that surprised me with his magical and almost unrealistically well matched his parents were, Brian's parents. How quickly Frank remarried after the death of his wife. It's only a year.
That is quick.
And then he died the next year. So
I don't know. Why do you think that was?
I don't know.
The book doesn't really go into it.
No.
Do you have any thoughts?
I think that Mr. and Mrs. Herbert had a symbiotic relationship that one couldn't really go on without the other. They were absolute soulmates from the start and really depended on each other for just everything.
So do you think his remarriage after she died was a result of
You'll need to
trying-
repeat that. You froze.
do you think his remarriage after she died, after Beverly died, was to fill that gap?
Yeah, probably more for companionship than anything else, really.
Yeah.
I think, it, of course, it could not have possibly meant near as much as Brian's mother did to him.
Right.
I mean, yeah, she was his writing partner.
Yeah.
But okay, I'll air some dirty laundry here. When I split up with my first wife, we were apart for 2 years, and I'll tell you what, we couldn't live together, but I was just absolutely beside myself, lonesome.
Mhm.
Yeah,
If nothing else, just for another adult to talk to.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I can imagine. I mean, how difficult it was. So.
Yeah. Now, how did I forget? It was been a little bit. How did Brian view that second marriage through his eyes?
Can't remember. It's been a little while since I've read it.
No, the way I remember it is that he wasn't against it, but he wasn't really for it. It came across through the book as more neutral than anything else.
Yeah, I think I remember it almost being like the fact parts of the book. It's like, and then my father got married,
Yeah,
And this
it just
happened.
happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Now, what year again did Frank die? Do you remember?
85?
Mr. Faxman.
It's 85 or 86.
85 or 86. Yeah.
And Jan died in 80.
Well, it would have been like 83, 84. Yeah. Yeah.
Or not Jan, Beverly.
Beverly, yeah. Beverly. Yeah. She had her roots. When we interviewed Brian, didn't he say that she had her roots here in Lancaster? Or who had the roots? One of his family members.
Someone had family roots
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't think it was
remember.
Frank. I think it was Beverly.
Probably Beverly. She went all the way back to royalty. Didn't she?
Oh, did she?
It was on. He said it was on the wrong side, so it's like maternal.
Oh, my friend.
So Irish, I think.
Yeah. Well, you're royalty now, Lord Moulton.
I am Lord Moulton now.
Lord Moulton.
Officially Lord Moulton.
That's right.
So,
He got in a cereal box.
I did. Came with a decoder ring.
Yeah. Woohoo! Captain Midnight. So, I mean, any other thoughts? So, for someone that's into Frank Herbert, how essential is this book, in your opinion, David?
Man, that's so tough because it's so different than reading like a novel or any of his just writing. Like, oh, I love Frank's writing. I would say for me, this was something I'm glad to have added to my life. And I wouldn't have expected to say that. I would have been like, it's just something that we did. But really, honestly, this was really, most of the time when I read a biography, autobiography, I walk away feeling like the person is less of someone that I admire, and I didn't walk away. I both came away for admiration for Frank and Brian from this book. So, yeah.
And how about for you, Jim?
I would have to say it enriched my life. Gave me a new respect for Frank Herbert because I thought at first I thought he just wrote this book and was, wow, okay, he's filthy rich now, and he's if nothing else, I would recommend any aspiring author to read this book and realize that a person pays their dues for a long, long time before they come considered a really good writer and a good storyteller. Because I think a person needs to know that. You don't sit down and write a book and then all of a sudden you're rich. It takes many, many years of practice to get to that point where you're actually even selling books.
Yeah.
Yeah, many,
So,
many books.
I think it would be a really great handbook for aspiring authors, especially someone who thinks they're going to get rich really fast. And I mean, I'm not saying that doesn't happen. I mean, obviously, you take a look at Tom Clancy, Andy
Yeah.
Weir. You know, those are two guys that just hit right off the bat. But that is the exception, not the rule.
It's so
I would
crazy
agree.
that you said that. So just yesterday, my buddy Chris Hall wrote a book called Earth King Chronicles. Check it out if you like fantasy on Amazon. He just wrote this book, released it this last fall, and he's been working on it for years and years. And I know that he really wants to be like just to write full time. And I wrote him an email and I said, "Look, I can't believe I'm recommending a biography to you, but from a writing standpoint, like I think that you should really read this book." I think I was like, to me, it just opened my eyes to things that I knew, but just really made it real of how even after, like I was saying earlier, even after this, Dune was a success, he still wasn't living the life of success until it had been that way for quite some time. So,
Well, and the way I read it, he was actually living the life like he was successful long before he actually was.
yeah, good point. But I mean, like, really, they moved around so much, and had all that debt and everything. But I mean, like, wasn't real luxury until he had them all kind of taken care of.
Right. I think for me, go ahead.
Even then, when they were building the house in Hawaii, that was bankrupting them.
Yeah. It's true.
We talked about recommending this book, and I think for me, the way I would look at it, for people even that, let's say, so you took the writer, and I agree with you. I think someone wants to be a writer, they need to see that, writers are human beings, and you go through the same crap, and you don't necessarily get recognized in your first shot out, your second shot out, third shot out, and so on. But I think the thing that when I look at this, I kind of look at it, when you get your DVD, for those of you who still buy DVDs and don't download or stream, but for those that buy like DVDs and you want to see like behind the scenes, the making of, the documentaries on like how the story came about, that's what this is. So if you're a huge Dune fan or you love the writings of Frank Herbert, you've never read this, I think this is and you love that behind the scenes footage stuff, like this is the closest you're getting to the behind the scenes footage, the making of, who is the man behind this. I mean, and we got that in Road to Dune a little bit. This is so much more authentic.
And it's a good read. It's not just like read this for information.
And it's not a list of facts. I mean, we mentioned that there is some of that in there, but this is the story of Frank Herbert.
Yeah, it's well written.
Great fictional story.
Yeah,
I'm just kidding.
super fictional.
Yeah, not bad. Not so. But that's my thought. I think this is very much a behind the scenes. And I know, like, I don't watch that for every movie I get, but I do watch that for some, and I think it's great.
Yeah. So obviously we all liked it to varying degrees. What would your rating be, Scott?
Didn't give it a 5.5 out of 5. Now, see, I'm going to give it a rating, and this is not the same rating that I give for the storybooks, just so you know. Okay. So you can't put apples to apples here. I think this is a 5 out of 5 for me. It was I have to compare it against other biographies I've read, and I've read some really good biographies, and this is a really good biography.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably what we're.
Excellent. Jim?
Easy is a 5.
Yeah.
I will read this book again.
I am going to completely agree.
Unlike Dune, Doon.
That was a -5 out of 5.
Negative.
I'm going to give it a 5 out of 5 too. The fact that I recommended it already is just like
that's telling.
Confirmed it to me.
That's a telling.
Yeah.
Telling.
So
awesome. Well, we do have some good reads. So
let's hear some of these.
You want to hear some good reads had to say?
Yeah.
So Goodreads, just so you know, came out pretty positive. All right.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So average rating for this was about a 4 out of 5.
Okay.
So people overall liked it. So let me. We have this, and then we have a little bit of listener feedback. There are some comments that were put on our website that we want to talk about, and then we'll wrap up the show. We'll talk about, I guess, what we're going to be reading next.
Yeah.
But that's kind of where we're going here in the rest of the show here. Whoops, I just lost everything here. All right. So Goodreads, and let me get my cursor back here so I can actually see what I'm doing. So let me just go down through some of them, and let's start out with 2 5-star reviews. Is that okay? Can we start positive and go down from there?
Yeah.
All right. So this is from Edward, who writes, Frank Herbert was a jerk, but also a genius. He was also capable of intense love, loyalty, and feeling, and in short, he was complicated. That may not come across as a surprise to many, especially when studying the life of an artist. Complicated people often produce art that is as nuanced and disquieting as they are. I recently read the original 6 Dune books and was curious to read a little bit more about the mind that came up with such hauntingly weird stories. Sorry. There's a layered complexity to Dune that almost gets under your skin. After about book 4, you'll decide it's either a masterwork of culture and religion or pretentious crap. Likewise, reading about Herbert himself may either inspire deep admiration or loathing. Some of what I learned was not surprising. Herbert was an autodidact who skewed mainstream academics. He voraciously read everything he could get his hands on, with the emphasis on topics like religious mysticism, philosophy, and psychology. Prone to wide emotional swings and bizarre fixations, he may have had the mental illness such as bipolar or personality disorder. Life was chaotic but adventurous to him. He experienced more on a daily basis than some people do their entire lives. This is also an interesting look at a father-son relationship. That's what we mentioned. The kind of subgenre of biographies among many books that centers around parents and children. It reminded me of other similar literary family dynamics like Father and I, written by Lafcadio Hearn, by his son, or the relationship between Mark Twain and his daughters. There's a tenderness to such accounts that is often tinged with a bittersweet. Herbert was, by even Brian Herbert's own admission, frequently abusive, physically and especially emotionally. His family often suffered for the sake of his writing. While his admirable and long-suffering wife Beverly stoically shouldered the hardship, his children did not and could not be expected to understand why their father ignored them. Brian frequently mentions that one of his father's greatest weaknesses was his inability to understand children. To him, their shortcomings seemed intentional, one of the many roadblocks in his quest to complete his work. The tragedy of Herbert was that he produced something enjoyed by millions of strangers at the cost of his own and his loved ones' happiness. It's kind of poignant there. Mm-hmm. I'll see how much this goes on. Oh, 2 more paragraphs. We are tempted to judge such fathers alongside the judgments being made by children, to become angry at them if they're too forgiving or too harsh or even both. It reflects the struggle we go through ourselves to admit things about where we came from, about how we were raised, coming to terms with the emotional baggage that inevitably rises in any family unit. In the end, Brian had a very positive view of his father, one that developed over many years and took into account his many flaws, as well as what seemed like true regret on the part of Frank Herbert in the attempts to make things right later in life. I can't excuse some of the things Herbert did, like his emotional rejection of his gay son Bruce, but I can respect the path Brian took to arrive at the conclusion he did. It was his decision to make. If you're a fan of the Dune series, this makes for a fun coda after finishing Chapter House. They say you should write what you know. Terrible advice if you don't know or do much, but great if you lived a life as diverse and intriguing as Herbert's. Much of what he did found its way into his fictional universes. At the time he lived in Mexico, his religiously strict aunts when he jumped the broken bridge in a car, or when he rescued and the ecology of acrid climates for a journalism story, something that would trigger one of his most famous sci-fi epics of all time. If you learn nothing else reading this book, it is to be endlessly curious. Never stop learning and reading, especially if you want to create something. So well written.
Yeah, very well written.
Yeah.
A lot of agreeable stuff to what we had said.
Yeah, well, he voiced a lot of that stuff real well. So, any thoughts, Jim?
Yeah, same thoughts here. He that was a very well written review and pretty spot on.
Yeah. All right, very good. Well, here's a 3-star by Tudor. I'll say his first name, Tudor, and it's a 1-line review. You ready?
Yeah.
This is gonna be deep.
Okay.
I'm still waiting for the real biography of Frank Herbert.
Someone else picked up it's a work of fiction.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. I'm still waiting for the non-fictional life of Frank Herbert. Yeah. All right. Now let's go to a 4-star review. This is by Scott, not me. All right. This is a mixed bag. Part fond reminiscence, including heretofore unrevealed family history. Part cheerleading session, if you don't know after reading this book that Dune and Soul Catcher were Frank's favorite of his own works, and you haven't paid attention during the multiple repetitions of this fact. Part airing grievances, Frank was less than accepting when Brian's brother came out. This book is uneven, more focused during the early family history section, and long and drawn out during the overly detailed description called from Brian's diary of his mother, Frank's wife's battle with the fatal illness. Despite its flaws, if you're a fan of the man's work, it's worth taking the time and effort to read.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
Let's hear 2, man.
you want to? How about
1?
This is
1.
What you want a 1-star? Okay, let me look. I'll find a 1-star review just for you, David. Just for you.
Yes.
Filter by 1 star. There's not many. Out of all the reviews, there are only 17 1-star reviews.
Wow.
And only 1 with comments. All right, you ready?
Yeah.
1 star. This is by J. Crew. Yo, holla. Okay, I just finished this biography written by Brian Herbert, and wow, I really just liked it. Let's just say I have a personal reasons for reading this book. This account read like a 13-year-old's diary, shoving snippets here and there, oddly mashed, incomplete, and a lot of the constant tug of pity me, praise me, irritated me the whole way through, and made it apparent that Brian has unresolved daddy issues. Cry me a river. What strikes me the most about this book is how Brian wrote in regard to his younger brother Bruce, the number 2 son, an unnecessary self-propelled label. I mean, really, Brian? Was barely mentioned and mostly coupled with his unfortunate homosexuality that Brian and his whole family wished he wasn't. This made Brian almost seem no better than a bigot. With lines like Brian and his gay lover arrived, or experimenting in homosexual practices because my father didn't give him enough attention. Are you kidding me? Maybe Brian turned to drugs because he couldn't come to terms with his homosexuality, which, newsflash, isn't a choice. This book was published in 2003, not 1973. Herbert did not even mention that Bruce died from AIDS alone in 1993. My heart goes out to him and the unfortunate family situation that he was born into. Ultimately, this book did try and portray the fantastic life of an amazing author, but was overpowered by obvious misgivings by Brian. I guess I could not expect any more than this from a man who has made his living by coattailing off the legacy started by his father.
That's rough.
He's pretty harsh.
That's rough.
Yeah.
I think feel like some stuff must have hit home with him.
Yeah. It does seem to resonate, right?
Yeah.
Unresolved daddy issues. I mean, I guess you could argue this about anyone that's writing about their life, right?
All right.
And I mean, if you're going to be honest about Frank not accepting, there is, depending on the cultural background, the religious background, the way you grew up, that the accepting of the homosexual lifestyle is going to be difficult for people.
Oh,
I mean, that's
sure.
just the reality of it.
Yeah.
And some of you listening are further along in that journey as far as accepting that and maybe walking that yourself. That's fine. But some people, this is you don't break through that stuff overnight.
Yeah.
So.
And especially, I mean, even 2003 was a total different environment.
Yeah.
Even
Than today.
Than today. So even, I mean, who knows? And this sounds like defense, but really this is just me talking about kind of looking at the situation. But I mean, who knows whether or not he left some of that stuff out or referred to it in a certain way because editors or whatever were saying, you know, nobody's going to buy this if it comes out as propaganda,
right,
or anything like that. I mean, you don't know.
Yeah.
Speaking strictly from experience, I can tell you that my struggle with acceptance has been a very long road. And
Yeah.
and being able to understand and finally knowing people and understanding that the issues, I think the problems that I had years ago was I thought below the belt. And when a person learns to think above the belt, you know what I mean? That it's not the same thing. It's not about one dimension of relationships. It's about a multi-dimensional kind of relationship. A person can understand a little more and be accepting. But it is, for those of us that are older, it is difficult.
Yeah, and so that's generational. And,
Yeah.
But again, it's all context. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's family and the way you kind of.
And it's
grew up.
also a matter of putting aside your fears.
Oh yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
You know, there's nothing to be afraid of. These people are not predators. They are not all pedophiles. They are not all one thing or another. They're just human beings.
Yeah.
Yep. Can we read one more?
You got another one?
I'm a 2-star. I figured since we've done the 1-star,
else,
I have 3-star. So this is a 2-star. This is short.
Okay.
And he actually agrees more with the 1-star. So this is more of a Brian. This is from James. This is more of a Brian Herbert pity party than a biography of Frank Herbert. The writing is as bad as his Dune sequel and prequels. He's busting on the writing. Really, if someone's reading this, there's a good chance they're a fan of Frank Herbert and have read his books. You don't have to tell us what they're about every time they're mentioned. I gave it 2 stars just for the information about Frank Herbert I didn't know before.
Okay, he hit something. The fact that like every time they brought up Soul Capture or anything, you got like a mini reminder. That kind of got on my nerves, but I don't know. At the same time, it's like, you know, I reached a point in the book where I needed reminders, especially in the political area. Like when he would talk about, I couldn't keep those people straight.
You know, here's the honest God's truth. Not everyone who reads this book is going to be a Frank Herbert aficionado.
Yeah.
You're going to be, maybe you've read Dune, but if you don't know the other works, it may be hard to keep them straight.
Right. Or if you're reading it for a class, because I know there are classes on.
Now, how did you feel? We didn't talk about this when we were discussing the book. How do you feel his writing style? How did it feel to you when you thought about the prequels and the sequels to Frank's original work? If you compare the writing style alone.
Go ahead, Jim.
Thanks.
Boom! Not it.
No, I guess I didn't see a great deal of correlation between the fiction and this book. And probably because I wasn't looking for one, but I just felt like this was a man telling a story about his father and his mother. It's as much about Frank's or Brian's mother as it is about his dad.
Oh yeah.
So I just thought it was Brian, maybe quite a bit of the time thinking this through in his own head, putting it down so it's solid and he can look at it, and at the same time doing a service to the fans.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Writing style, first 2 chapters, I was like, well, yep. It's a book by Brian.
But you could tell from the way it was written.
Yeah. I mean, some of that fact, like kind of raised themes from, especially like the Legends books and the House books, like when they were just starting off their writing journey with Dune stuff. I think a lot of that smoothed out considerably
as he wrote more.
That's
part of the learning process.
Yeah.
Well, why don't we go into just what we got from
Yeah.
you folks that listen here, and these emails come from our website, and we'll just run through I think 3 of them, and at least 2 of them are pretty solid. The other one's kind of a mini one, but let me go ahead and just share these, and then we'll just talk about where we're heading next, what book that you should be reading.
Yeah.
And we're back into the novels, right?
We are.
I've been longing for this.
Me too.
Yeah. So this is from John C. Man, to have been presented this, he's talking about the movie. I think the Lynch movie, if I'm correct. Man, to have been present for this, our discussion. I disagree with you. I loved the movie. Maybe biased, was introduced to the world of Dune by the movie, as opposed to having to read it first. I remember seeing it in the theaters at release and the controversy it brought, but loved it anyways. You should discuss the films again, in my opinion. So,
I don't know.
But if I recall correctly, Jim, this is a mirror of your journey. You saw the movie first and then read the book. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
So, and we've heard that story from other people that said, we watched the movie, went and read the books, and it doesn't bother us that they were different.
Right. I mean, our opinions have we've gone over it many times.
Yeah. So you can go back and listen to that episode. And
but I mean, I appreciate the comments. Too bad he couldn't have been there.
Yeah, people encounter podcasts at different times, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts on this, Jim, before I read the next one?
Nope. Move on.
Yeah, so let me see here. So this person was commenting. This is a really short one, and it's by Prod Pay Pred. I don't know what it is. I don't think it was spam, but he says he's talking about The Road to Dune that we read, and his comment is, therein, the book contains several articles, short stories, and deleted scenes from the original works, as well as a novelette titled Spice Planet, with many similarities to Frank Herbert's Dune. Where else could you get such information?
I mean, that's true. It's all he or she has a good point there. It's all that stuff is in there, and it's all collected there for exactly that reason, to have one resource.
Right, and for people that are like, it's like up behind me, I have the 14 books on the notes of J.R.R. Tolkien as he wrote Lord of the Rings and Silmarillion.
Wow.
Where else are you going to get this information? But it's not going to be the same as reading Lord of the Rings.
Right.
I mean, that's just a reality of it.
Yeah.
I know that we were kind of mixed on how we felt about that series. But I mean, he's right. I mean, I guess it depends on why you're reading.
And in the background of Jim, there's 17 loots on the wall. But
I mean,
it's not
who else is going to have like the complete history of the loot, along with complete manuscripts of all the loot cantatas and so on?
Yeah, but it's not the same as having it played,
especially
live.
When you're like, playing it live and writing on top of a sandworm.
Yeah,
it's absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
There's just
with the lightning coming down, David Lynch style.
Yeah. It would be it's an image, to be sure.
Jim's just face palming right now. How many more books do you have?
It's like a cantata. You sing a cantata. What are you talking about? You don't even use the right musical terms.
Yes. No, I'm not going to correct anybody again. I guarantee you that.
Well, Anyway, so thank you both for writing in, John C. and Pay Prod Pred. I'm going to say that 5 times real fast. It's like Prod Pay Pred, or I don't know, whatever. So this is by CRVO. Servo? I don't know. So this is not my email. His email address is great. Not my email address at gmail.com. So, but anyways, he wrote this. Count me in on our growing array of fish speakers. I too named God Emperor my favorite of the original saga. I came to my opinion over time, initially dreading the book 4 in my rereading schedule. Now I view it as a volume in which Frank Herbert begins to reveal the scope of his work in the Dune universe. As for other readers finding difficulty in forging forward, it's understandable. There's little direct connection to the familiar faces we're hoping to learn about when we first cracked the volume. At first, even the familiar names are alien as characters, and the gulf between the roles of God Emperor compared to the first 3 novels can swallow readers' interest along with the seeming lack of continuity. Another personal favorite factor in God Emperor is the use of the portent in regards to the next 2 books, and the tying together of the similarly pretentious moments from the books 1 through 3. I like it as a nexus of prescient timelines.
Yeah.
So well said.
Yeah.
Well said.
I like that nexus analogy.
Yeah. So he likes it a lot. I forget. It's been a while since I read it. I recall enjoying it. Where's rolling when you need to know how you value the book? But but what? Any thoughts on what he's saying here, Jim? He?
If I recall, I didn't like it as much as that particular person did, but I mean, it was okay. I mean, yeah, that's fine.
Well, certainly when you hit the final 2 books in the series and the conclusion, you see the relevance of it.
Oh yeah.
But I think when you hit the book at first, you're like, huh? What?
Yeah.
I mean, it's quite a leap. How many thousands of years? 3,000 years in the future?
3,000 years from Children of Dune to God Emperor.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Well, okay, so here's what's happening next. Our next book, we're going to be jumping back to way back into the past of this whole universe. We're going to begin our journey into the Schools of Dune trilogy.
Now, we intentionally put these books aside and chose not to do them because one of them had just been published and there was another one the way, the Navigator's book, which in my understanding is at the publishers.
Yeah.
I don't know that we have a release date yet, but
September something.
So
yeah.
We have 2 school books here, and then there'll probably be just a little bit of a break till we hit that book, is my guess.
Right.
But because I think that's it, unless we're going to do other Frank books. But
yeah, no, I think so. So we've got 2 more books, and we want to definitely hear what you think about all things Dune.
Right.
Get a more substantial response, hopefully, off of these books. What you think about now that it's officially done, and they went back and started publishing more in between books, like how you feel about that continuing on. So these take place right after the Legend series, so right after the Butlerian Jihad, and it's about kind of the schools forming.
It's after the Battle of Corn, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, the Battle of Corn. Yeah. So this one, the first one's Sisterhood, which I assume there's an overarching story. However, I would think this has to do about the Sisterhood forming.
Yeah, the formation of the Sisterhood.
Yeah.
Have you read this book first?
I have not read this book. I have not read Mentats of Dune. And of course, I haven't read the new one. So,
right.
So that's our plan.
I'm looking forward to it.
I am too. And then our plan from that point forward is up in the air. So
we still got to talk.
So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. So sounds good. So probably somewhere a month after we release this episode, we'll be talking about this via Facebook and the schedule and the Twitter, and we'll try to keep you informed. But you can plan on reading this. We'll have to update our cover art again.
Yeah, I'm so glad to have. We definitely have all through the non-story stuff.
Yeah,
I'm glad to be back to story stuff.
Oh, me too. I think that's some of my favorite parts.
Yeah. So Jim gives a thumb up.
Yeah, he gives a thumb up and a pencil up.
Whoa.
Whoa. Yeah. He just gave me the pencil.
Whoa.
I'm out. That's it. I'm done with this podcast.
This is after you said you'd quit if I liked the last one.
Which
I gave it a better rating.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, you can go ride your pretzel anytime you want. But so anyway,
well, if you want to get in touch with us before then, let us know about Sisterhood of Dune. You can do so by visiting Facebook, facebook.com/DuneSaga or on Twitter @DuneSaga. You can email us, DuneSagaPodcast@gmail.com, or you can leave us a lovely voicemail, which would be at.
Yeah, well, so phone number is like not right in front of me right now, but if you give me a second, I might get that.
Goodness. Goodness gracious.
I know, so stalling. Phone number, why is it not here? Is it, no, yeah.
Well, in the meantime,
go ahead.
Also, if you'd like to help keep us going, it's on Patreon, patreon.com/DuneSaga. Thanks for everyone there. Anything else we need to go over, Jim?
No.
1-260-577-2428.
Ooh,
look at that.
Jim with the
spot.
same, man, he can give me a pencil any day. So,
all right. Well, once again, for the Dune Saga podcast, I'm David Bolton.
I'm Scott Herzog.
And I'm Jim Arrowwood. And Shai Hulud, clear of the...
I need you to back out. We're just wrapping up the show. Just wait, bud. Go ahead, say that again.
And I'm Jim Arrowwood, and may Shai Hulud clear the path before you. And Keith.
Yeah, what's up, bud? Come here. She came just at the end.
Perfect timing.
Yeah. All right, no. Be decent. No, it's all right.
Oh, man.
It's okay.
Here you go, bud. Kiefer.
It's like the Hunger Games in here.
What is it?
So you just bring it back. It has to rest here in this thing here like this.
Okay.
And then you go like this.
He had $2 to spend at the dollar store today. So looks like we saw what he got.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
That's right. $2. All right, very good. So should we talk a little bit about where we want to head after this?
Yeah, sure. You have time, Jim, or you need to run?
No, I got a few minutes. What's the topic here?
Well, so what we have bounced around. We have bounced around a bunch of different stuff over the.
Do you want to stop broadcasting?
Oh yeah, I guess I can. I don't need to see anyone's.